Cool.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode with Double B. We are here with Daniel Morrow. Daniel, welcome to the show. Go ahead and give us a 10,000 foot overview of you, about you.
Damn, man, 10,000 feet. That's it. I don't know, man. It's yeah, it's been a journey. Definitely been a journey to get to go through all the bumps and learning and everything to get here, right? Started off my working career in the kitchen as a dishwasher, slaving away, but managed to hit line cook within 6 months. Spent about 7, maybe 8 years in that business before I decided I wanted to branch out, do my own thing. I was just sick of it. Worked my way into sales. Went to schools. Shouldn't be admitting it, but I passed all of my insurance and mutual fund exams studying in the strip clubs, and and the rest is history. I've been in finance since 2012, 2013, somewhere in there, and yeah, just kicking ass, taking names, and doing whatever I can to help people get to where they want to be now.
Hell
So
yeah.
it brings up 2 points. You're a chef and you're in Canada, which means you can make us probably the best poutine we've ever had in our life.
I lived off those for a couple of years, yeah, when I was hungover.
There's actually a restaurant down here that had one that they called Western poutine, and they took the frites and then they put country gravy on it with cheddar cheese. And it was actually really good.
Nice. I would layer the shit out of mine. I would do like 3 layers. So I do a little bit of fries, put some cheese, some gravy, a little bit more fries, cheese and gravy, and you just have like pretty much a mushy mess by the time it came out of the oven. But it was
right,
good.
gravy soup.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The key to that was like thick gravy. You wanted it thick, so it didn't get too soupy.
I like it. I love poutine. It's actually really good.
I don't think I've ever had that before, but it sounds amazing.
It's definitely a good greasy cake if that's what you're craving.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah, man.
So cool, man. You're doing finance and stuff like that now. We just recently became connected on the social medias, but I've seen your face freaking everywhere since then.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, it's making a name for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that, to get that initial exposure, it can be tough, right? Because it takes time to build traction, and you go a long time without people actually paying attention to whatever it is you got going on. But it's just a matter of staying consistent, staying with it, right? And part of it is being lazy and working like smarter, not harder. So what I've done is I've gone through it in my calendar. I've scheduled a bunch of things in my calendar. So it's like 6:30 in the morning. I know I need to bust out 2 sentences that'll like light people up for their day. And then like 11 o'clock, like around lunchtime, I know I have it in my calendar that I post my video, whatever I recorded that morning, right? And then schedule it across where I can. And then like 2 o'clock, I try and post something funny because I know all the people on the East Coast are getting off work, and the people out here on the West Coast are hating their lives because they just got back to work from lunch. So try and give everybody a nice little laugh there. And yeah, it helps with the consistency so that people do start seeing it everywhere.
That's actually a good point, because I started looking at our analytics and stuff like that and watching the graphs of when people were engaging with our content on social media. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of just, there's like a 2-hour really like big peak window. It's like down here and then all of a sudden just jumps and then it just drops. And so we've started using that to kind of use as our sweet spot to put out anything that we ever post.
Yeah, you could take that one step further and use that as like your prime content, right? Your peak content. So whatever you find people like, whatever the theme is that your audience engages with the most, use those peak times to post it.
Right.
If you got one peak time, focus on that. As you get the momentum and you have like 3 or 4 peak times, mix it up so that people don't really get bored, right? Type deal. But then you can just keep riding that wave.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think a lot of people think about that when they're starting new, you know? They're like, oh, I'm just posting shit and it's going nowhere and this sucks.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we did.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those learning bumps, right? And the easiest thing to do is think about who is it that you want to do business with? Who is it that you want to attract? And then trying to get in their head. And because once they start engaging, you'll start to be, and you follow your metrics, you'll start cluing in, okay, well, this got a lot of engagement. This got people talking. This type of post gets me a lot of direct messages. And then you could start figuring out how to structure it to maximize it all, right?
I think that's something that we're learning how to do. Not something that we've really learned yet, per se.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a learning curve just like everything else. But it's like the number one step is just to get off the ground and go, and then everything else you got to figure out from there. And I don't think that you stop learning, to be honest. Even when you get to a certain level, there's another level that you got to basically start over in.
Oh yeah, there's levels to everything. There's no finish line, there's no end. The second that you stop learning is pretty much when you give up, you start falling down the hill, right? You slowly start rolling down the hill, getting nowhere. So it's a matter of like, and it doesn't matter. You can follow any influencers podcast, right? They all say the same thing. Is just they set their sights on a level or something that they want to attain. They get there, and then there's something else. There's always something else that requires them to keep developing, keep learning, and keep going.
Right. Like you set your goals with a timeline and say, I'm going to hit this goal by this day. Well, then you do that. Then what next? You're going to keep going and moving up.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't stop, like you said.
Yeah, that's just it. And that's key. That's like you mentioned a good point, and that's something that a lot of people neglect or forget. It's not serious until you put a date on it. Right? Look at New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolution, everybody's like, hey, I want to go to the gym. I want to go do this, that. Not even 2 weeks later, everybody drops off. Where instead, if people would shift their mindset and say, okay, well, I want to lose 30 pounds by April 1st. That's something real. That's something tangible. And there's a date that they know they got to make something happen by, right? So if you can break down what you want to do and set those little benchmarks or those little milestones along the way, you're going to make stuff happen a lot quicker and a lot easier.
Absolutely.
Well, and I also think that if you don't set a date, there's no accountability factor either. And that's one thing that a lot of people will neglect as well.
Well, that's just it, right? It's not real. It's kind of like whatever. I get to feel good because I'm saying I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it. So then I'm just going to feel crap. The cycle is going to repeat itself.
And I think a lot of people just, and this sounds horrible to say out loud, but they say that they're going to do all this shit, but they never actually like tell anybody who's going to hold them accountable because they don't actually want to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm going to quit smoking, but I'm not going to tell my spouse that I'm trying to quit because they're going to force me to.
Yeah.
Well, you don't really want to fucking try.
Yeah. They don't want that tension, right? So
right.
They don't, especially when a significant other is involved. Like we don't want to tell our wives because we know she's going to be up our ass and piss us off. So
yeah, I mean that's perfect example, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, man. But I mean, that's the only way to start is just to do it, right? I mean, especially if it's something new to us, we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know the end result that we want. So sometimes it's just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and just starting to make any sort of a progress. And then as you're going, you'll start connecting with people who are either like a lot farther down that path than you are, or they're kind of starting to start out where you are, and just talking to them or listening to them, you start seeing something. It's like, oh, actually, that sounds really good, right? You start feeling yourself pulled in a direction. So then you can start actually firming up those dates and making those plans, right? Or you'll just see those people that are down the road from you and go, you know what, I actually don't want this. So let's move on.
Yeah, business ownership and entrepreneurship and every other label you want to put on self-employment. I mean, obviously, there's a certain type of person that it takes to get to that point, and it's a hell of a lot of work. It's a whole lot easier to fill out a resume and say, "Hire me."
Yeah.
Yeah, to a point.
You know, like it just. I feel like you said, you went to school and got good grades and everything like that, and passed all your stuff, and that seems rare for people that we've talked to. I think one other person has said that. Everybody else has like a ninth grade education and they're making six figures a year.
Oh man, if it were up to me, I would have dropped out of high school. I did the bare minimum to get through high school. It was just my grandma. My grandma thought that I'd be the last grandchild that she'd get to see graduate, and it was a big thing for her to see us all graduate. Right? I've got 4 cousins and a little brother, and I was like, the only reason I skated by and did the bare minimum was for her, and it pissed everybody off because everybody's like, you'd get good grades if you applied yourself, and I was like, nah. And I get test anxiety. Like I fucking hate tests, right? I get test anxiety. So when it came to actually making the commitment to myself to go to school for my financial licenses, like I hated it. So I did it self-study. And the way I did it, the college that I went to was nice because I could do their version of the exam as many times as I want. I didn't have to worry about if I fail 3 times, I don't ever get another chance. So I failed that thing like 7, 8, 9 times. and then the instructor was like, called me up. He's like, he caught me leaving one day. He's like, you know what? If you fail this time, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna book a seminar, sit in the classroom for a 2-day seminar, 3-day seminar, whatever it was. He's like, and then you can rewrite your exam. And he's like, I bet you'll pass that time. Sure enough, I sat in a classroom for 3 days and then I passed. So like, it was a struggle. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it. And then my mutual fund license, I think I was a bit drunk when I signed up for that course because I signed up for the mutual fund dealer compliance course, which didn't actually give me permission to sell mutual funds. It only taught me the rules and the laws in the mutual fund industry. So the brokerage, the agency that I needed it to join, they called me up, and the regional director called me up. He's like, Daniel, I need you to come in and we got to have a heart-to-heart talk here. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go in. He's like, I don't know how to tell you this, so I'm just going to say it. You took the wrong course. You can't join the brokerage yet. You got to go apply for this other course instead. I was like, shit. Not going to do that again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's rough. That's really rough.
Yeah, set me behind like 3 months, 6 months.
I think at that point I would have just been like, fuck this, never mind.
I'm way too stubborn. I'm way too stubborn for that, man. I was like, fuck this. I was like, this is my career. This is my livelihood, right? This is the next step in my journey. I'm gonna find a way, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take it. Like that's it. Like there's no turning back. I'm not going back to a kitchen. I'm not going back and slaving my way in like through a kitchen anymore. I'm not gonna be a crook canvassing for charity again, because I did door-to-door sales for charity, and like some of us were making like 20, 30, 50 bucks an hour just knocking on doors raising money for nonprofits. I was like, I can't sleep at night doing that, and I'm sure as hell not going back to selling cars. I hated that too. Like finance is my gig. I belong in financial services. That's it. So like it's make this work or give up on this specific license and find a new path, right? So
That makes complete sense. When you know, you know.
yeah.
I think the other part is a lot of people, I don't know if they ever get to that stage, you know, like this is where I'm going to go. This is how I'm going to do it. This is why I'm going to do it. Because they allow the fear factor to kind of kick in, and then they'll back down instead of going, no, this is where I want to go, and I'm going to hammer it down all the way. But they allow the fear factor to push them back.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a way to cheat it though. There's a way to trick it. So what I did before I went to school for any sort of a license is I made sure that I lined up a job first. I made sure that I had somewhere to hang my hat before I even committed to school. Because now I'm accountable to myself, but now I have somebody that's ready for me to sign a contract waiting on me proving myself to a piece of paper. So I've got people that are looking to me to hold up my end of the bargain sooner than later, right? So it's no longer about me. And not only that, but is it like it's a lot of entrepreneurs will say go work for somebody else to get experience where you want to get experience first. So there's that. So if you take the pressure of going out on your own off the table at first, you go somewhere so you can figure out if it's actually what you want to do, and you can learn the structure, you can learn the systems, you can learn the process. Then when it comes time to make that next step to actually go out on your own, you already have that familiarity and you already have that name for yourself. So it's just you're taking all of these small baby steps to knock off that fear, right? All along the way. And you're finding other ways to keep yourself accountable instead of just telling a few close people that you're going to do it, right? Most people are more scared of letting down somebody that they don't know as opposed to letting down somebody they do know, because let's face it, we let people down that we know all the time. So if we don't know somebody and we don't have that like a strong relationship with them, then we're going to be more inclined to hold up our end of the bargain a lot more often, right? So just find that leverage on yourself.
Here's a golden nugget.
You know, and I think not only the golden nugget, but that kind of forces you to prove not only yourself but prove to them that you're worth it.
Well, yeah, that's a big part of it too, right? And it's like how many people you could probably, without even thinking, you could probably give me 5 names right now of people that you know that went to school and aren't even using their degree because they didn't, because either they couldn't find work in their field or they just decided that it wasn't for them anymore. There you go, right? Like we all know it's part of life, and it's sad to say, but it's part of life, and a lot of people end up in debt over it. So I mean, if you think that you have a direction that you want to go, find people who are already doing it, talk to them and see if they'll give you a chance. And you know what, sometimes they might even help you through school. Sometimes they might even flip part of the bill for you, or maybe they'll have a discount at a college or a university for you, right? And maybe they'll let you work as an intern or shadow or something like that, right? Do something while you're going to school. And then so you're snowballing you're snowballing the results, and you're speeding up the process towards getting to where you want to be, right? Getting that much closer to the. You got to stop hitting damn buttons on this thing.
I was like, crap, we lost him.
no, my stylus acts as a remote. So if I hit the button, if I'm fidgeting with it and I hit the button, it'll like pause or turn the music up or down or volume. It's funny. So it's like I got to find other stuff. But what was I saying? Yeah, it's just it accelerates your results that much faster, right? Because you put yourself in a position where you have a supportive environment, you have a team, and let's face it, like people who are at the top of the companies or people who've done a lot with their lives, people are way too scared to reach out to them and have a conversation, right? And they would love nothing, like a lot of them, unless they're like Mr. Grinch or whatever. Most people actually do want to be supportive and help people get where they want to go. And not only that, but imparting your knowledge onto somebody else is part of leaving a legacy, right? So there's all these people who are high up, like C-level executives and companies. Everybody's too scared to talk to them. You can set yourself apart by reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I'm thinking of starting my own business, or I'm thinking of a career change. Like, can I buy you a coffee? Can I hop on a phone call? can we do something where I can connect with you, find out like about the industry, learn a bit from you, and see if this is a good path for me. And you know, at worst case scenario, you get told no. Best case scenario, you walk out of it with a job offer as well, because you actually took the time to set yourself apart. Or you're somewhere in the middle where you had a very good conversation and now you have a bit more clarity if that's actually what you want to do. And you could just keep going around to other people in that space until you find something that clicks, right?
You know, that's something that's come up quite a bit on this show, and I hope people are listening long enough to hear it, because people are afraid of the people that are more successful, and I air quoted, than them, because they want to be at a certain level, but they don't know where to start. And that we actually just filmed a one-on-one, which is the two of us, for the previous episode, and that came up as well. And it was like, if you want to be in a certain spot in your life, find the people that are in that spot, reach out, and 90% of them are going to be willing to help you, because that's our nature, is to help other people. You'll get a couple assholes here and there, but that's besides the point. I mean, just move on to the next one. Find somebody that you can connect with and just shoot your shot and go from there.
Oh yeah, exactly. But it's just, we make things a lot more complicated than they need to be, right? And I mean, when I first got into financial services and stuff like that, like one of the guys I worked for, he was the divisional director of the agency I was with at the time. And I'm like, yeah, if somebody has like $250,000 in assets, like I don't want to approach them. I don't want to talk to them. Like, I don't like, it's just, I was scared shitless. And he's like, Daniel, let me ask you this. When they wake up in the morning, how do they put their pants on? I'm like, I don't know, like a regular person. He's like, exactly, just like you do. So why the hell would you be scared to walk up to them and talk to them? Why would you be scared to pick up the phone and call them? Like, why would you be scared to look at their books? Like they're a person. There's nothing special about them. They just probably worked a lot harder to get to where they are. So like, what's the big deal? It's like, huh. All right. And fast forward, like that was 2013, 14, somewhere in there. So almost 7, 8 years later, I mean, I'm not doing the personal side of things anymore. I'm financing businesses now. But now I'm talking to business owners doing $2 million, $5 million, $10 million a year. And it's just, I'm like, whatever. Okay, great. To me, it's like, those numbers don't even faze me anymore. I'm like, it's great. Like, it's awesome that you're doing stuff and you're building up businesses that far. And like, it's just, it's really like, it's really coming to just almost like a whatever point at this point. It's like, great. Like, you still call me bro. You still drop F-bombs every other word. If you feel like you're close to me, you still want to go out to the pub and grab a beer every now and then. Like, we're really not that much different.
Well, and I think to add on to that, the first 3 or 4 episodes we did, I think we were kind of hesitant to talk to a lot of people because, they were big names. We didn't really know a lot about them, but we knew they were big names. And now it's like we just want to talk to everybody, because the more people we talk to, the more people we find they're just like us. They're just regular people, and there's really no reason to be afraid of them.
Well, exactly. We just get all caught up in our heads over whatever our excuses are, right? It's really not warranted. Like, it's not warranted at all. And a lot of people are chill as shit. And the odd time you get somebody who maybe they're not that chill, and you kind of walking away from the conversation going, what the hell did I just get myself into? Like, that was a waste of time. But I mean, that doesn't happen that often. If you're in the right circles.
It's happened to us a few times.
Yeah, it's happened a few times.
Yeah. It's going to happen no matter what, but.
So you had told me at one point that you're helping startup companies with financial offers and stuff like that. Is that something you're at liberty to share?
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, like I said, I've been in finance for a while. I dropped the personal side in the licenses because I got tired of the golden handcuffs, right? And financial services, I mean, there's a lot of it, like especially when securities licenses are involved, they don't really want you. So it wasn't for me, right? So now it's like in terms of financing, I've got options for like everybody now, whether it's somebody who's just getting ready to start a business up to somebody in the millions, right? So when it comes to startups and younger companies, I mean, everything comes down to credit and credit worthiness at the end of the day. But for startups, like we do have a startup program that's called a quick start program. And then we have credit card stacking, which we can stack business credit cards up to $150,000. And we just recently locked down some sort of a partnership with another company that allows us to do personal loans for people who don't qualify for the business side. So the personal loans we can go up to, I think it's 150 or 200,000, depending on how good somebody's credit is. We can stack a couple different loans if they need a bit more, or stack credit cards as well for more flexibility. So we do have some options there. And at least it's depending on who you ask. I mean, $150,000, it's not that much, but it is because it's still like 6, 8, 12 months of operating expenses, depending on your lifestyle and what you're really willing to sacrifice, right? At the bare minimum, if somebody only qualifies for 50,000, that's still 3 to 6 months of operating expenses to get going. So
That's awesome, because you talk to a lot of banks and credit unions, at least here in the States. They'll want something huge in collateral. So like we were talking about opening this shop in this town that I live in now. And we started talking to a couple people. They wanted me to put my house up for collateral. I was like, no. Like I'm not that willing to do this. So I like the idea of stacking credit cards and things like that. It's a lot more sensible.
At the end of the day, it's a trade-off, right? I mean, yes, like so it's unsecured versus secured financing, right? Secured means you're putting up collateral. The nice thing about secured financing is because you've got some sort of an asset that the lender can fall back on in case of default, you're going to be paying less interest. It's going to be a cheaper loan. Unsecured financing is nice because you don't need the collateral, but you're going to be paying a little bit more to borrow the money. So it really, at the end of the day, it's just a trade-off. But there are options. There's good options on both sides of the fence.
I almost wonder. I don't know if you're at liberty to say, but is there some people that take the unsecured versus the secured, or is it like a 50-50 split, or what?
In terms of like secured loans, we don't really have a lot of options. We don't have too many options. I mean, we've got a ton of lenders across the States and Canada. I just sit on Zoom or the phone and I can work anywhere I want, whenever I want, which is kind of nice. And I'd say 80% of my clients are all in the States, which is kind of funny because I'm all the way up here in Canada, but that's just the way it goes. But yeah, it's just we don't have a lot of options for secured lending. And I mean, people take it all day long, right? It depends on what's available. And a lot of the programs out there are unsecured, right? Like personal loans could be either way. Credit cards are unsecured, and you can get secured credit cards from like Capital One and stuff, but whatever, that's neither here nor there. And then if you look at it, you can flip it to like merchant cash advances, alternative financing, that's all unsecured. Line of credit can be secured or unsecured. It really just depends on the lender and what you're looking for, right? At the end of the day. It's not that one's better or worse. So
Just kind of depends on what size the shoe is versus what size the foot is.
yeah, pretty much. Just what makes the most sense for you and what's going to help you get where you want to be that much quicker, right? And let's face it, like the real thing that comes up is, especially when it comes to like startups and like younger or less mature businesses, they're scared to borrow money. Yet they want to grow, but they can't grow because they don't have the money to grow. And it's like, if you look at any reputable source like Investopedia, Bloomberg, and stuff like that, they'll tell you that the majority of like Fortune 500 companies are known for borrowing capital or doing capital raises or whatever to grow. So if you got big Fortune 500 companies, why would you, as a doing it, why would you be scared as a startup to do it? Like, it just makes sense. You're not limited by your means. The sooner you start building up that business credit, the more experience that you have on your credit file borrowing money means more lenders are going to trust you sooner, which means you can get access to larger amounts of capital sooner, right? You can show a history of paying the bills on time, paying loans back on time, so that you're less limited as you're growing throughout any stage, right? And it's just the weirdest thing in the world. I just turn my watch off. Sometimes it just goes off. Sometimes it just goes off like crazy with text messages. Other times not so much. But yeah, that's really what it comes down to is how fast you want to grow, right?
So that kind of brought me a question, and it kind of sounds stupid now that I really think about it, but I'm going to ask anyway. So my wife is obsessed with Shark Tank all of a sudden.
It is a good show.
Which isn't my question, but it seems like a lot of people like really run to investors and want to give up part of their company as opposed to borrowing money. And sometimes they offer them a loan and stuff like that. But I was just kind of curious about your opinion of getting an investor to take part ownership of your company, or equity, I guess, versus getting a business loan and paying it back.
I find there's a couple different camps on that one, right? I know, like, a good friend of mine, I met him a few years ago. He trusted the wrong management team and retired, and his company pretty much got ran into the ground. And he turned it around and pulled through it, and it's his pride and joy that he's made it to being a national multi-million-dollar company without giving up even 1% of his company. He still has 100% ownership. That's his pride and joy. But he had no problem borrowing money. It's just taking an investor and giving up that equity was off the table, right? I got other people I know people who take more pride in using investors and never borrowing money. And then the third camp is, I'm just going to do it myself and I don't care. Like, I don't want to talk to a lender and I don't want to talk to an investor. And I find the three camps tend to be pretty evenly split. Like, it just really depends on the person, and I would say a lot of it is ego, right? The people who don't want investors and don't want lenders, they want to do everything themselves, and they're probably running their company and spending more time working in their business and the day-to-day operations than they are actually running their company. And they're wondering why they're not growing, and they have a whole other set of headaches about it, right? And then you got the other people who, they have no problem. Like, they understand that it takes leverage to grow and make money. So they got no problem borrowing money, turning to lenders and paying the interest, because guess what? It's, when you borrow money for your business, it's a tax deduction, right? It's tax deductible. So you get another tax deduction at the end of the year, which is kind of nice. The investors, I mean, it's, a lot of people are okay giving up equity because they technically don't have to pay the loan back. They're not actually making payments. They're just giving up part of the revenue, or they're looking for an exit down the road anyways. Like, if you're just looking to build something up, build it up fast and get the hell out of it, sell it, make a profit, it might make sense to take on investors who are like venture capitals or angels or whatever, who are known for building up businesses quick and then getting out for a substantial chunk of change, right? It really just all depends on what your vision is. If you want to leave a legacy for your family, if you want to leave a legacy for your kids, then it probably makes sense to borrow money and go more of the traditional way, right? Use banks and other lenders such as ourselves in order to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that makes sense than what most people would try to explain it, because it's not super in depth, but it's straight to the point.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, there's no sense in complicating it, right? This is what do you want out of your business? Where do you see yourself, right? And then pick your plan from there. It's when you have somebody, when you've given up equity, when you have business partners or whatever, and if it's not working out, it's a pain in the ass to get rid of them, especially if you don't have your legal documents written up properly, right? If you don't have any shotgun clauses in there, buy sell agreements, nothing. I mean, it's a nightmare. It's a headache to get rid of people. So why go there? Why take it on if it's not in your big plan to sell it at a profit one day?
Yeah, makes sense.
It's
Shit.
probably one of those things, again, that they just didn't know it was available, and nobody taught them, or nobody spoke about it, so it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it, and is there's different requirements too, right? Like if you just have an idea, no venture capitalist is going to look at you. They don't deal with like startups and pre-startups so much, right? They deal with like mid-stage, late-stage startups types deal. So you're looking for like angel investors or like crowdfunding, different things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you hit a certain revenue threshold where you're too big for the angel investors. There's an awkward stage of growth where you're too big for the angel investors, but you're still too small for the venture capitalists. And so you're in this like little awkward like tween puberty stage, right? and then there's the venture capital from there. So it's a lot of it is just knowing that it's available, but also just doing your research on what's available, how it's available, and finding somebody that is in line with actually what you're trying to accomplish, right? Whereas if you just look at lenders and borrowing money, it's simple. You're profitable or you're not. You have good credit or you don't. You got a lot of money cycling through your account or you don't. All of those little things are going to make up whether or not you get approved for a loan and how much you're getting approved for. So it keeps things a lot more simple in a sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And not only that, you should do your research instead of just going to the first person you see. And because everyone's going to have, I'm not going to say everyone, but a lot of people have different options and are more willing to work with certain things than others.
Oh yeah.
And that was very prevalent on my mortgage for the house I'm in now. Like I went through 5 different companies before I found one that I was able to work with.
Yeah.
So shop around, find the one that
exactly.
fits you.
Yeah, exactly. Or find somebody that'll do the shopping for you. I mean, that's what we do, right? We're a marketplace lender. Like that's what we do. So when we get a file, it's not okay. Well, let's fit this square peg into this round hole and find a way to make it work. You go to a bank, they're just going to tell you yes or no if you even get a call back, right? And a lot of lenders are like that. Whereas with us, it's like, okay, well, here's your file. Here's what we're looking at. Here's what's realistic. Different lenders specialize in different areas, right? In different verticals. So some lenders will do construction companies all day long. Other lenders won't even touch them. Well, if you don't know what you're doing and you talk to a lender that doesn't specialize in your space, most people will just go, oh, well, I got declined. I'm never going to get a loan. They don't realize that there's specialists out there.
Yeah.
Right. And so having somebody who has access to all these different pools of businesses, of lenders, that they can actually do the shopping around, talk to people and find something that actually, instead of making you fit into the lender's box, right, fit the lender into your box. So you get something that's going to be a lot more favorable for you.
And this is a perfect example is I went through the bullshit with like, I think 4 different lenders. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm moving to a rural location. Um, I can put money down, but I don't want to. So I started looking at loan options, and then I was like, okay, so here we have a USDA loan, which is for rural areas. And my town's like 70 houses total. So we're rural. And
Yeah.
I started asking all of the agents, the real estate agents that I knew, if they knew anyone that specialized in that. Plus, then I started calling all of the mortgage companies that I could find. And I finally found one that happened to be right down the road. But they specialize in that type of loan. And that's who I ended up going through. I mean, so it's just a perfect example of what you just said, that it's not that you won't get approved, you just haven't done your research.
Yeah. Just do your due diligence, right? Don't go to somebody that's gonna try and fit you in their box and kick you out the door. Find somebody who you can fit them into your box, right? Every
Right.
business is different. Everybody's situation is different. I mean, yeah, numbers are numbers at the end of the day and kind of whatever, but at the end of the day, everything is still different.
So we do ask one question every episode because we like to see everybody's answer, because it's such a dynamic question, at least to us. So we've talked about you going to school. We've talked about being a line chef or a line cook, sorry, working in the kitchen, moving up into finance, stuff like that, working on your own endeavors and things like that. So, I mean, you've come a long way in your life, and so we want to know what your opinion or your personal definition of success looks like. How would you define success for you?
Not being a one-dimensional douchebag.
That's a new one.
Well, if you think about it, everybody, like most people in the world, they have 1 or 2 areas of life that they do really well in, and then the rest of their life is shit, right? And there's so many different names for the categories: family, faith, finance, fitness, body, being, balance, business. Like every influencer, I'm not going to say successful person, but every influencer has, like we were talking about this a bit before the show, every influencer has their own spin on it, right? But at the end of the day, no matter how they tee it up or tie it up and put it on the platter, there's like there's no point in having any success in business if you don't have your health, because you're not going to be able to enjoy it. If you have shitty relationships with your spouse and your kids and your employees or your team members, whatever that looks like, you're not going to have a business very long, right? And you're going to be lonely, you're going to be depressed, you're not going to have much of a fulfilling life, right? And then whether you're a church person or a religious person or whatever, boil it down to connection, right? What kind of a connection do you have with the universe, with the people around you, with God or whatever you want to call a higher power, right? So like what's the point in being average like everybody and just getting complacent in 2 areas that you can do really well in, when you can look at life as from more of like a holistic approach and do everything that you can every single day to have it all, right? Like I was never big on like health and fitness and shit like that. I hated that. I hated gym class in school and all that kind of stuff. And I just signed up for my first like 6-week fitness challenge, learning how to use a steel mace and swing that son of a bitch around. And then, yeah, like it's true. You can't enjoy your life without your health. Like, and what good is being successful in business if you have nobody to share the success with, if you have no relationships to turn to and lean on, right? Like I think it all goes hand in hand, no matter which way you boil it down, which way you want to look at it.
I like that a lot.
That's I mean, when you first said it, I'm like, and then like you went further down the rabbit hole, and it opened up the spectrum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I was the same way. I was a little off put. I was like, wait, what? And then, you know,
I'm like, where is he trying to go with that? And I mean, I could,
Shock and awe.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I really like that because it's true. It's 100% true.
I think that's one of the top two, I
Yeah,
would say, personally.
I would have to agree.
Yeah, man. I remember when I was selling cars, there was this dude there. It's like 80 some odd years old or something like that. Like we swear that more often than not, he would sleep in his car out behind the dealership. Because he would never want to go home to his wife for whatever reason. Nobody even wanted to ask and open up that can of worms. He would either be at work from bell to bell, or he would be at the casino or wherever, right? And it's like you see people like that, and it's kind of like it just to me it just doesn't make sense. It's like why would you be in a relationship with somebody if you don't even want to be around them, right? And it's like if you're not going to nurture your relationship, why be in a relationship? What? Why be that lonely old man at the end of the day?
That makes sense. I mean, you can always fix your stuff. I mean, if you it's gonna sound dumb, like your kids are your babies, your wife is your baby, your business is your baby. You know, like all of this stuff you take care of. You can't just abandon everything and expect to be happy. It doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I mean, what most people do is they they they're basically like I love firefighters. They're awesome. I'm not meaning to like degrade them or what they do, but most people spend their life playing firefighter, right? It's their business is burning to the ground or their career is burning to the ground. So they'll double down, get tunnel vision, and focus on that. Next thing you know, their relationship with their wife or their spouse or their kids or whatever is falling apart. So now they're doubling down there until something else starts falling apart. And they're constantly jumping around from fire to fire, wondering why the hell they're all stressed out all the time, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you just take a step back and slow down every single day and dedicate a few hours a day to everything, you're going to be a lot more productive and a lot more fulfilled, and you're not going to have as many fires to be putting out all the time.
That's
And
the
it's
perfect.
like, here's the real kicker: the same power that's required to produce in your marriage is the exact same power that's required to produce in your business. You can tell how somebody's marriage is by looking at their business, and you can tell how somebody's business is by looking at their marriage. Like it's a two-way street. It takes the same level of energy to produce in both, right? So it's like, why not spend time on both every single day? Because all you're doing is compiling your momentum. Like you're just growing momentum that much quicker by not having anything burned to the ground from out of neglect.
I mean, that's a perfect example of being proactive versus reactive, just in life in general. If
Yeah.
you're proactive, my friend Adam Cray says this, and I think that it explains it perfectly. Is he says he's living his life deliberately. You know, like you instead of reacting to everything that goes wrong, be proactive, and it's like planting a fucking seed in your garden. You're gonna go out there and water it every day. You're not gonna neglect it and then just go drown the shit out of it when it starts to die. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, exactly. It's a lot easier to maintain everything and produce than it is to try and catch up and keep all behind.
Yep.
Well, and I think the other thing is people. I mean, from even high school, you're not really taught to be proactive about it. You're not really taught to be reactive about it. It's just an instinctive thing. And then you have to learn to get past the reactive and you have to learn to be proactive.
At least in high school here, they just teach you that you need to go to college to get a good job, or else you're going to be nothing but bullshit your whole life. So I mean, I'm just going to throw that out there.
It's the same up here, right? That's why I hated school, and that's why I wanted to drop out, is because you have to fit in their box. Like there's no leeway. It's black or white. It's you could like we learn in life as adults that you want this up here. There's 50,000 different ways you can go about getting there. There's like you look at now we got Google Maps and shit. You look at Google Maps, there's 20 or depending on how big your city is. I mean, you living in the rural, there might be two. Me, I live in a city of like 1 million people, so there's like only like 6 or 7 ways sometimes. But in like bigger cities, I mean, you can have 20 different ways of getting to the same location, right? Or more.
Yeah.
And life's the same. But in like high school, it's like you got to fit into this box or you're done.
Yeah, they say go to school.
Okay.
That's this line right here. Get a good job. That's it. Like, it doesn't make sense. They don't prepare people for the real world at all.
No. Shit, I don't even remember anything they tried to teach us back then because I mean, what do we actually use out of it?
Yeah. I wish they taught us about taxes and not parallelograms because, man.
Yeah, they didn't teach us how to do taxes, how to get a loan, how to start a business, how to.
They told us we'd never have calculators in our pockets all the time too.
Right?
Yeah, bitch.
Like,
one of the trainers at work was a couple weeks ago was getting pissed off because she's like, nobody here knows how to do long division. I go, because everybody here has a damn calculator.
yeah. Yeah, why do we need to know how to do it?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
one.
what if you
struggle
don't
as a
have it?
parent,
I'm
though,
always
how-
going to have it.
Like trying to teach my son how to do all this stuff, and he's like, "We got to do it this way." I'm like, "See this?"
Yeah. But you have to do it that way if you want to pass your school.
Oh, I know it. And never mind. I'm going to drop it before we get into another half-hour-long tangent.
Yeah, we'll go off the rabbit hole really quick, really fast.
So, my last question for you is: will you share with our maybe 3 listeners now the best place to find you and where they can find all of your links to all of your information?
My name, danielmorrow.ca. That's it.
And like he said to us earlier, is Morrow is spelled like tomorrow without the 2.
Oh yeah, just write down tomorrow and take the 2 off, and you got my last name right there. But yeah, danielmorrow.ca is generally the best place. I'm actually revamping that. I'm going to build out contact.danielmorrow.ca, and that's going to have all of the links to all my different social media and stuff like that. But even just going to the main danielmorrow.ca, that's got a nice little page with all my contact information and social media and stuff like that on there. I mean, I'm everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, Facebook. So most of my handles are either Real Daniel Morrow or Elite Clarity. So.
All right.
Do you have anything left, Brad?
I think we had a pretty good one. I think it's we went pretty deep on this one.
That's what she said.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for hopping on, and we really appreciate you giving us an hour of your time.
Yeah, man, for sure. Thanks for having me.